Hey guys, YouTuber Nerd here. All right, now here I am to begin my reviews for the month, and so starting off with first Phase Four MCU film. Yeah, yeah, here I am to start off with a review for Black Widow. So this movie came out this past July, and I was going to make a video giving my thoughts on the movie after I went to see it, but yeah, I never actually did get around to it. So I guess it's a good thing that I didn't because I can now go more in depth in this review. Yeah, yeah. So overall, like I did think that this was overall a pretty good movie. Yeah, of course, like this movie the release was delayed a few times because of COVID and a couple other situations. Like the release date was postponed a few times, but yeah, it finally did get released this past summer in July. And overall, I did like the film. I thought it was a pretty good movie. Yeah. So I wouldn't really say that this film is really in the upper tiers of the Marvel films, but yeah, it's like just like a solo film in the MCU. I thought that it was a pretty good film. I thought it told a pretty good story. Yeah, so of course, like ever since a Black Widow first appeared in the MCU back in Iron Man 2, since then, just a lot of people were really clamoring for her to have her own film, and they finally did give it to us here. Yeah, and people really were wondering when it got announced, they were wondering if it was going to be if it was going to be like an origin of in a story film, or if it was going to be something like continuation, like if she actually did come back after what happened to her in Endgame, or what the situation may be. Like people were kind of questioning what kind of movie this was really going to be. Yeah, and it turns out they ended up kind of having this film kind of be a prequel in a sense, but also kind of not being a prequel. What I mean by that is it's not like films like the first Captain America or Captain Marvel, where those the film is set really early on, before the events of the first Iron Man movie. Yeah, instead this film is actually it's set after the events of Captain America Civil War. Yeah, yeah. So this film really doesn't have any sort of actual continuation from Civil War or anything like that. There's no real connection with this film to any of the other films in the MCU. So yeah, it really is just a solo film, just to kind of I know just I guess kind of give us a little bit have the focus be totally on Black Widow. Yeah, and with this film probably being Scarlett Johansson's final time in the MCU since she was killed off in Endgame, I figured the main purpose of this film really was to just kind of um give her some give the character of Black Widow some closure, since this will probably be he the final Marvel project with her. Yeah, and overall, I did think that it was a pretty good film. So the film is kind of about um Black Widow's, or I guess I should say Natasha Romanoff's, uh, kind of what did happen to her after Civil War, because it's shown that as this after the opening scene of the film, it does show that apparently she's become a fugitive after she violated the Sokovia Accords. Or and after she was in like after she was ended up being locked up, she ended up fleeing into to kind of just try to run away from Shield and everybody. And and then she eventually ends up coming across the family that she grew up with. It's they reunite, and with and there's a face from her past that she finds out she thought she killed before is alive. Ivan. So yeah, so she's trying to really you try to find him and destroy him for good, and that is pretty much like how what the story for this film is. Like she ends up like meeting with her old family, and she really does like try to like kill this person that she thought that she did kill years earlier. Yeah, and that is basically like what the focus of the film really is. So I do think that the movie overall is pretty good. Like Scarlett Johansson, once again, like she does a really good job as Romanoff in the film. Yeah, and the rest of the cast overall they are pretty good. Like this film also does feature cast members like Florence Pugh or Pugh, however that's said. Yeah, has David Harbour, Olga Kurilenko. Oh, Ray Winstone, and even Rachel Weisz. So yeah, so it was interesting to see Rachel Weisz in this one. Like ever since like she did like the Mummy and the Mummy Returns, I really haven't like seen her really in anything. I really don't think that she really has done anything like very significant ever since the Mummy and the Mummy Returns. But yeah, it was interesting to finally see her after all these years in another film that was actually like a big film. So yeah, so overall, I do think that the cast does a pretty good job. Yeah, yeah, and the action scenes in this film, I think, are pretty good. Like some of the scenes, like when you're watching this film, it kind of makes it seem like this is like some sort of war movie because there's a lot of like machine guns and there's like chases like in aircrafts and all this other stuff. So at some point, as you're watching this film, like it really does make it seem like this is some sort of war movie. Yeah. No, but overall, yeah, I did like the film. Like I said, this really is not like doesn't really have any sort of connection with any other film in the yeah MCU. So yeah, so it's really just a solo film in the universe. Yeah, and yeah, it's not like I said, it's not really like among like the like in the upper tiers of the MCU films. But yeah, overall it is still good. Like just I guess just like following like Endgame, it just doesn't. I really don't think that there's like anything that Marvel can really like get any bigger than. Well, unless like the this new Spider-Man movie is true. Like if the rumors for Spider-Man No Way Home is true, then maybe they can. But yeah, following like the that like any like films like this, like probably like there's not really anything that Marvel can really do to top what they did in Endgame. And besides, if they do go through with the rumored Spider-Man No Way Home, like I said. So yeah, oh yeah, so maybe like if you do compare it to Endgame, maybe it does seem like a step down. But yeah, this is just like really the start and like to like kick off like some of like the newer storylines that are going to occur in the MCU. Like there's not really anything in this film that really does like have any sort of thing that like does start any new storylines. Well, until like the post credit scene in the film, which I will talk about at the end. But yeah, it's just a solo film with no sort of connection to any other film in the MCU. I do think that it is overall a pretty good film, and I do think that it is worth a watch. So yeah, so I guess I would probably give this film about 3.5 stars out of 4. Yeah, it is a good film, and yeah, and I do think that if this is going to be like Scarlett Johansson's final project with Marvel, I think she did go out on a pretty good note, and yeah, and I guess like we should at least be glad that she did finally at least get her own movie. Yeah. All right. So yeah. So I guess I'll just get right into the premise of the movie. All right. So the film opens up like in the year 1995. It shows how Nat and another girl, Yelena Belova, are like in the care of like uh, Alexei Shoskatov, who's a super soldier like Captain America, and Melina Vostokov, who is like another Black Widow. Yeah, and they're both undercover agents, and they're posing as a family in Ohio with Nat and Yelena. Yeah, and then one night they decide that they have to like actually flee from Ohio, so they ended up like stealing a Shield intel able to escape, and even like some Shield agents tried to chase them down, and Vostokov ended up getting wounded it in the shootout. So yeah, Nat had to actually like fly the plane out to get them to escape. Yeah. Then eventually, when they arrived in Cuba, it showed General Dreykov ended up like having a Nat and uh, Bilova like just taken to this place known as the Red Room for training. Yeah, and so they ended up being taken away from Shostakov and Mostakov. Yeah, and then as the opening credits played, it just like kind of like showed like what Nat ended up like going through as she was growing up. They're like it showed how like Shostakov ended up being imprisoned in Russia, and Nat eventually ended up defecting to Shield after she bombed Dreykov's office in Budapest and ended up killing him as well as his daughter Antonia. Yeah, and then then the film ended up then cutting to 2016 after the events of Civil War, and it showed how Nat was a fugitive for violating the Sokovia Accords, but she ended up escaping from the from uh, uh, General Ross, who was the U.S. Secretary of State, and she ended up fleeing to Wales, in a safe house that was supplied by Rick Mason, who was also known as the Agent. Yeah, yeah, and then then eventually it showed that Bilova was kind of like now like her own kind of agent. She was like in sort of like a different field of agency than like Black Widows were. Or yeah, and then she ended up like killing a rogue former Black Widow, and then it showed that she then like found this synthetic gas that neutralized any mind control from the Red Room on any agents. Yeah, yeah, and then uh, and Belova ended up sending antidote vials to Nat, and in hopes that the Avengers can actually free the other widows that were being controlled by the Red Room. Yeah, yeah, and then then unbeknownst to Nat, and as she like was driving in a car that actually had the vials in them, eventually an agent of the Red Room that was known as the Taskmaster ended up fighting with Nat, and then they like ended up like having a brawl with each other. But then eventually, Nat was able to escape from the Taskmaster, and then she realized that like the vials were from Budapest, and then Nat eventually arrived in Budapest, where she then met up with Belova, Belova, and then at first like they had like a little bit of a scuffle with each other, but they eventually came to a truce, and and then then and Belova then just explained to Nat that Dreykov was still alive and the Red Room is still active, and so then as they were like trying to track Dreykov down, eventually they ended up getting ambushed by other Black Widows and Taskmaster, but they were like able to evade them and eventually met up with Mason that gave them a helicopter that they were able to escape. And yeah, and then they were eventually able to track Shostakov to the prison that he was is locked up in, and they helped him break out of prison to help them learn where Dreykov was located at. Yeah, and then he ended up like eventually like directing them to Vostokov, who was now living in a farm outside of St. Petersburg, and it showed how she was like caring for like pigs and stuff, and she was like apparently like implanted them with like some sort of chip that she could like control them with. Yeah, yeah. And then as they were like sitting down to try to figure out how to track down Dreykov. Like it was revealed here that like a Shostakov like had like a like another identity known as the Red Guardian, who and he was basically like a counterpart to Captain America. Like it showed that he like had a similar costume as Captain America, but it was red and stuff. Yeah, yeah. Eventually, Vostokov ended up like alerting Dreykov that um Nat Belova and Shostakov were there. Yeah. Then eventually, um like some of Dreykov's agents arrived to take Nat Belova and Shostakov away. Yeah, but then later on, Nat like just convinced Vostokov to help them, and they like used like some technological face masks to switch places. So Nat would be like posing as Vostokov, and Vostokov would be posing as Nat. Yeah, and then like it showed that the Red Room was like an aerial facility, and Vostokov like as Nat was talking with Dreykov, Vostokov freed Shostakov and Belova, and then eventually Dreykov then just saw through Nat's disguise, and it was revealed that the Taskmaster was actually Antonia, and it like he explained that like when Nat like supposedly killed the two of them, Antonia suffered some damage that required Dreykov to put like technology in her head, and it really did make her like just a perfect soldier that was capable of mimicking the actions of anybody that you may see. Yeah, yeah. And then later on, like Nat then like attempted to attack Dreykov off, but it showed that like she just couldn't attack him because every Black Widow apparently has like a pheromone lock installed that like prevented them from actually like assaulting Dreykov. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, she was unable to attack him, but she eventually ended up just like breaking her nose. That ended up like severing a nerve in her nasal passage, which ended up destroying the pheromone, which then allowed her to attack Dreykov. Yeah, yeah. And then Shostakov then ended up like fighting the Taskmaster as Vostokov tried ended up like taking out one of the engines in the facility, and eventually the Taskmaster ended up being locked up in a cell. Yeah. And then as Nat was attacking Dreykov, eventually like other Black Widows then arrived that allowed Dreykov to escape. And then yeah, then Nat tried to fight off all the other Black Widows, but eventually like she got overpowered. And then as Nat was being attacked by all the other widows, eventually Belova ended up exposing them to that antidote. Oh yeah, and then as Nat was like trying to retrieve like a couple more antidotes. She ended up freeing a Taskmaster from the cell, and then as Vostokov and Shostakov ended up like escaping on a plane, Belova ended up taking out Dreykov's aircraft, which ended up killing him. And then as Nat and Belova like were free falling, and Nat ended up giving Belova a parachute before where she like battled Taskmaster, and then as she landed, then Nat then like used the last antidote on Taskmaster, which ended up freeing her, and then Belova was given the other one, and with all the, and then yeah, she was also like given the locations of all the other Black Widows that were still under mind control, so they could be freed. Yeah, and then yeah, then with everybody then like freed, then and uh Belova, Vostokov, and Shostakov then said goodbye to Nan, and then left with Antonia and all the freed widows on the plane. And then yeah, then as they left, then uh, it just like showed like all the like agents of Shield or whoever it was, whether it was the police or whatever, arriving as Nat was looking on. Yeah. Then it cut to 2 weeks later, where or Mason then ended up just supplying Nat with one of the Quinjets. It's for her to use in freeing all the imprisoned Avengers. And then and then the movie then cut to credits. But then then we got the big moment in the post credit scene where like it was the post credit scene like was set after the events of Endgame. It showed Bulova visiting Nat's grave after of course she died in Endgame. So this wasn't the post-credit scene that some people were really expecting. Some people were thinking maybe like the post-credit scene of the film was gonna be like her like on Vormir after like she sacrificed herself, and then she ended up being revived once the Infinity Gauntlet was activated, and they reversed the effects that what Thanos did. But they went with something different. They kept her dead here, and then it just showed Belova like visiting Nat's grave, and then it showed Valentina Allegra de Fontaine there as well. And then she just like gave Belova the next assignment for her next target, and saying that she may want revenge on the man responsible for her sister's death, and then like showed her a picture of Clint. So Clint was like being accused of the one responsible for Nat's death here. So and of course, like is a this is a carrying over to the new Hawkeye series that's now on Disney Plus. So this story will this is like a story arc that will pick up like in the Hawkeye series. So that's how it ended. It kind of like a this was what really did like set up like the a new story arc for Marvel in the future. So this was real. I guess this was really like the what this movie's like main purpose really was, along with like giving like the character of Natasha Romanoff closure. It also like sets up this new story arc with Belova now going to be going after Clint in this new Hawkeye series. Yeah. So at least like it does that to really like set up a new future story arc. All right. Yeah. And that's how the movie ended. Now, so like I said, it is overall a good movie. Like I wouldn't really say this is really in the upper tiers of Marvel films, but it is still a good solo movie, and it does at least like give the character of Natasha Romanoff closure, since like I said, this is probably going to be like Scarlett Johansson's final Marvel project. So overall, like not in the upper tiers of Marvel movies, but it is still a good solo film. So like I said, I would give it 3.5 stars out of 4. All right. So so yeah, so so if you are really like looking for like one of the like the best Marvel movies, this really is not one of those like I wouldn't this is really isn't one of the best Marvel films, but if you just are interested in just seeing like another like just a solo film to just see like if you are one of those people that really did want Black Widow to have her own movie, I mean you finally got it. So if you're one of those kind of people that really were like, wanting a Black Widow movie, like you finally got it. So I guess like the movie is like worth checking out for that sake. And it also is like worth checking out like if you just want to see the character have some closure. Yeah. So overall, I think it is worth a viewing. All right. So I guess that's all I can really say about it. All right. So this is my review of Black Widow. So I hope you guys did enjoy this review, and stay tuned for more reviews coming. Next up, like for my next review, next I'll be like giving my first actual Christmas review for the year, and then I'll then like review a Shang-Chi, and then like I said, I'll be like alternating throughout the month, and up through like until I get through like all these other movies I want to talk about with MCU, West Side Story, and Spider-Man, and all that. And I'll be alternating with these and the Christmas reviews throughout the month, all through Spider-Man: No Way Home. All right. But I hope you guys did enjoy this review. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.